Finally.
Hey,
So we're walking.
welcome to the
Solverein.
slow dance. How was called the performance? The dance walk.
Dance walk, yes.
This is
Now we
dance
do the
walk.
dance walk actually.
Yes, this is a dance walk.
Yeah. Dance walk. How they say the chapters? Like they have different editions.
Yeah.
This is the chat edition.
Yeah, this is the chat edition of the dance
Yeah.
walk. We can hashtag them.
Yeah, and just send it to them.
Yep.
Cool. So what were we talking about?
About preparing.
Yeah, preparing because we could have had Jorge's tripod, that like a selfie stick kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's a bit longer than what you have. Yeah.
Yeah, but that like when this kind of thing, like I should have brought this or I should have set this up. That's like the practice I always think about because yes, but like I used to like really regret
Oh, why I did not?
exactly, but now I'm like, yeah, whatever, like we improve it next time, which is good,
Yeah. I think that's the beauty of like when you work not towards an object, but you work in a framework. Because towards an object you have the pressure of like, this is it. There's a point when you need to finish, and because of the nature of art, then you will try to work towards perfection. And yeah, and that's just not possible. So when you have just a framework instead of an object, then it's all good because you can just go back to the framework and maybe you will solve it or you will remember to bring the other tripod, maybe not, but at the same time it will be fine.
Yeah. But what is the framework? No, because I was thinking, because now we're doing this, but if I want to start something new, where should I start? Because I can't really think about, okay, I'm gonna make a new framework.
No, but yeah, I see what you mean. But I was thinking that a framework is something that gives you agency in relate to some specific thing. So, I think in a way, I think frameworks cannot be. A framework is a technology at the core.
You know what? I think I should be this side because this is. There will be more sculptures on that side.
So a framework is a technology. A framework is a compound of things that not necessarily need to be know the use for. I mean, for the creators, but it's just as technology is something that gives possibility for other things to be read or utilized by others. So even though the work is in frame, it's not. I don't think if you can start working in a framework by going directly to the work. I mean, or I will maybe say that I think it's more natural if the framework comes to you, then you go into the framework because that's more science-based methodology. That's a scientific approach to how you can create methodologies and find frameworks to iterate processes.
Right.
So, but then is that? So I think that's the difference. Like we have an approach where we did not find the work, but the work find us. In
Sure.
science, normally it's the other way around. You find the work and then you apply the methodology. So then you get a work, and then you put it into a framework.
What is work? Like a concrete example.
This is work. Anything that consumes energy is work.
Okay.
So this is what we do already is work.
But in science.
In science.
'Cause that's the
This is
hard,
literally
difficult thing.
science.
Difficult thing
But what do you
of
mean?
understanding what you were saying.
What would you mean in science, or in physics? Because this that we are doing is work for the body. It's burning energy.
Yeah.
And I think it's no different than in any other context.
Okay, I think I have too strict way of thinking in science, so that's why I'm having difficulty understanding what you're saying. Because in science, okay, there's methodology, but basically what happens is you have some hypothesis. Like you expect something to happen,
Yes.
so you find the methodology
Yes.
to achieve that.
You do some conclusions, then you see what is the next steps.
Yeah, because it will not happen as the exact
No.
way that you expected. So you kind
Yeah.
of, from the conclusions or the results, you have to find why it was not the same, or why it was the same as you expected, and then you have another hypothesis and methodology. I think that's kind of my understanding.
Yes, that's understandable. But you were saying so you say that you understand that as two things. One is that one,
That's a scientific approach,
yes,
and
which is so this is in relation to work. We are talking about work.
but what is because that's the difficult thing I'm
Okay.
having. Yeah, I'm having difficulty because in this process, what we do, work, I understand. Like this is work. What we did yesterday as a chat is work.
Yeah.
Anything can be framed as work, but then in science, in a way, there's no achievement, because you can do experiment, but experiment itself is often doesn't mean anything. It might be failure. Even if it's success, you have to evaluate it.
Yeah.
It does not come as a oeuvre by itself.
No.
But we do it that way.
Yeah, but in science also you have it's heuristics. Although it's not heuristic by definition, meaning that you have heureka moments, right? You do have break that's what is science, and then so although you have all the scientific approach that you describe and the steps, nevertheless, when there's something that in a way you can prove, like you pass through peers at some point, somehow you can say heureka, and that can change things. So that contradicts in itself the scientific methodological research until somebody proves the contrary, because that's science. So if you think in Einstein, for instance, when he put his theory, it was, and it still is, now it just started being contradicted. But for a long time, nobody could contradict the guy. And in science, normally you have that approach. Is based on, because it's epistemological, we spoke many times of that, is basically is in search of prove you wrong, or is it this dialectic where you try to basically, based on theory and knowledge, you try to stand a point. So I'm right based on this, otherwise you prove me wrong. So if you're Einstein and you prove your theory, I have to prove you wrong based also of, I just prove you wrong based on knowledge, basically, and research.
Yeah, I think that really also captures what I was trying to say, that there is no point that is okay, this is the work. Because even if you publish a paper, and even if it is accepted by famous journal, Nature or whatever, it doesn't mean that it's the truth, because as you said, other scientists have to.
I will then say it's a temporary truth. You have to. I think you have no, but wait. So then you have to prove me wrong with this. then we agree. This is the methodological approach of scientific research, right? Then it has to basically pass through a exclusive group of knowledgeable people like you in that field. Yeah, they have to review it. Once in a way they can agree, then it stays there until somebody else come and prove you wrong, and then it goes on and on and on.
But this is, I think this is a tricky part of academic research in general, that it's only valid if no one
Can prove you wrong, basically.
proves you wrong, but
Yes.
also people are interested in it, because
I'm not sure about that.
if something is like
just wait for the part to pass.
yeah. Because what you do is I write a paper that something like about no one cares, but it's somehow reviewed and passed the process, so it's published,
Yes.
but no one reads it. Let's say,
Okay.
then it was actually something like not true what I wrote.
Wow.
But
Why?
somehow it was reviewed and it was published.
But it should be true. Otherwise, I mean, if it's not true, the review will not pass.
But it's not perfect. They can't do the same experiment. That's the problem with the reviewers, that they can read the paper, but they cannot redo the experiment because it's a review process. That's for other researchers after published. They can do the experiment to prove it wrong or differently. But the reviewers, so that's not the reviewer's job. If there's something sloppy in the paper, the reviewers can say that, okay, this might be wrong. Can you check that, or can you give me more, proof, insights, or like results.
Yeah.
That's possible, but the reviewers cannot prove it. So after the publication, other researchers have to do the experiment. But then, if this is something completely useless, but still reviewers found something useful, so they published it.
Yes.
Then, although, let's say I'm lying, it was like a fake experiment, but if it was published and no one's interested in that paper, then it will not be retracted. It will just stay there as the truth. So it's like what I wanted to say is, it's not like there's no point that it's actually a work or there's like truth in academic paper, because it's a constant process. That's what I want to say.
Can you repeat that?
There's no point that someone discovered this, or from this time to this time it was like this theory was proven to be true.
Yes.
But it's a constant discourse.
Is it a discourse or is it dialectic? I mean, the discourse, understanding the discourse are something that is being sent in one direction. Huh? That's a discourse. It's not a dialectic process. Huh? The discourse is something that you just say it and it goes out. Dialectic, it expects something back.
Okay. No, actually, I don't know what's the right word, because it's not even like. Is it dialectic?
What?
Or like in science?
In science, it's dialectic at the core, because it's basically just based on knowledge. It's like, because it's said in science in a way. It's like an ongoing conversation. Science as in general, and then I speak right now. This is my truth. These are my facts. All these things that we mentioned, and then somebody else will come. Yes, but no, because of this. So there's the process. So it's dialectic at the core. That's Hegel at the core.
Yeah. What I'm not sure is, because everything takes time. Like I cannot just reply to you. If you say something, I cannot say maybe I can say something back to you, but sometimes it takes time, and that makes the glitches in a way.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Yeah,
because
I'm trying to see the please keep what you have. I just think that it's interesting in enlarging the scope, because I'm seeing this conversation and it's just hello, how are you, good, but it's just in science, in projects, and the glitch in between. This is something that I found interesting. The whole thing is just it's just we speaking about something that we don't really know.
Right. And actually, I really like to I did some research before about the fraud in papers that were completely fake experiment. Well, partially, but so the result was false, but somehow it was published because it was from a famous. It's not even a famous professor, but maybe from a famous research institute, and they did fake experiment, and, 'for their fame, right? It's not to have a prank, but. So the result was false, but somehow it was published because it was from a famous institute, and they did fake experiment and for their fame, right? It's not to have a prank, but. So the result was false, but somehow it was published because it was from a famous research institute, and they did fake experiment and for their fame, right? It's not to have a prank, but because they're so competitive place, you have to constantly have results. So that sometimes leads to this situation where fake results are published. And these things are, to me, what's interesting is that as soon as you publish, no one can say, like, even if intuitively you think something's wrong with this paper, you can point that out.
As soon as you publish, you're basically waiting somebody's gonna find out something.
Well, hopefully not, because they pretend that it's a real experiment. But
yeah, but at the core, like, would be very much like this imposter syndrome in psychology. You know, that imagine that what we do is like, so it's reviewed somehow, it's out, you will be constantly thinking, like, you open your email, like, maybe somebody found out something.
Yeah. But the thing is, if there's something really sloppy that, well, there are things like that, like some graphs are wrong because it's a fake experiment, so there are some weird things. And as a reader, you can point those things out, but it will really take time to figure out that it was actually, the core is fake. And it's not just like a mistake. But usually these things happen with like a pointing out the mistakes. Like there, probably this axis of this graph looks really wrong.
But it's fine. I mean, yeah. So what I found interesting in what you're saying is that because we, in a way, we are talking, we favor the glitch, right? So in this conversation, what I found interesting is that the process, actually, you're buying time to allow the glitch to happen, because during that process, until somebody can prove you wrong, then some things can happen. So then you're basically buying time. So actually, then that's a framework. That's what I understand the framework. Let me expand that. So because then basically your research paper is just a framework, it's an excuse basically for other things to happen in between. The paper is just a time that you're buying for the glitch to happen. And that's a framework for me.
Yeah. I mean, of course, it's not a good thing to do, but
what do you mean good?
Because that's it's like specifically about the fraud, like, you know, if something was fake. But even if it's like real experiment, there can be some mistakes in the.
But like, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but to be honest, then I'm not so interested in play the police of science.
No, that's not what I want to say, and that's why I'm interested in these fraud, fake papers in science, because that really, well, it's dramatic, but also like why this happened, from the pressure from the school, from the institution, and then all these small facts show up, right? Like some people point out, and then the journal asks the author to redo the experiment, or it becomes like really big, and then finally it turned out that they are faking the results, or they just disappear. It happens also, I think. And yeah, like why this happens and all the process, and as I said, it's not the process, is that like after 1 minute of the publication someone says that this is wrong, but it happens gradually, as we said about glitch.
But I think I don't really understand why you are so interested in this that we're talking, because I mean I understand what you said, but not the interest in what you're saying, because I don't find it interesting.
That it's science, but it's not science. This part, like, it's what supports science is not very square.
Yes,
it's very organic in a way. Because
it's very organic, or it's very square, because the two things are contradictory.
No, it's not square.
It's not square. Sorry.
And it's organic, because science has to be true. Something has to be true or false.
Yeah.
But what supports it, or this whole like this conversation happens, and to prove that the paper is wrong, but this whole thing is really organic. is human.
Right.
To prove that it's true or false. That's
But
I found it really.
But that's interesting because then you touch the human there.
Yeah.
Because that's human.
Yeah.
And then as human, then we are entitled to contradict ourselves. So, for instance, like if you said that it's a square and it's organic, I would like to start like training myself in accepting that that's true. Because that's the Walt Whitman says something in the poem called, I don't remember. It says that you can, then I contradict myself, then so be. I contain multitudes, he says. And that's at the core of what we're trying to say here. Like, I don't need to know. So, that was saying like I think in the 30s, in a really white patriarchal society. So he's white, and people were really trying to understand him. Like, but what do you mean with that? Like, what you're saying that? And it's a poem, but it's so precise in what he's saying with that. It's just giving agency for the posthuman. That's really back in time.
Yeah.
The guy acknowledged all these things, heteronormativity and all these patriarchal bounding boxes that we have.
Yeah. But in the end, science doesn't allow this multiplicity. But I guess it depends on the field of science, actually.
Yeah. So, for instance, we were speaking some time ago, like, for instance, in neurology, then because it's not so mature, then they can allow it because they don't have so much papers to contradict something. While in other fields, they can maybe say radically, no, that's absolutely wrong. And this is why.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, like, actually for the last, already like a few months, I was trying to think what kind of thing we can do with neuroscience, because I think if we do something scientific, that's the right place, the nature of, the field. But, and I have some contacts, but like, how do we frame it? Maybe we just have to like talking with those people to think about ideas.
Invite them to chat basically and talk with them to see what they think. Yeah, that's interesting. Absolutely.
I think it's a good ending.
Yeah, I think
my arm is very tired now.
Neurology. And so neurologists around the world, please contact us, subscribe, like this video, and we will see you in the next one. Probably
where will it be at?
Could be later on, here still in Essen, or could be back in Brussels.
Or in
Paf. Could be somewhere. Yeah, I think there's so many things also that we still have to talk about the chat yesterday. So, but we close this one here.
Okay, thank you for watching.
Ciao.